Hello everyone, welcome back. This video is the continuation of our descending tracts. The first part is already we have done with the first part. In the first part we have done with the general introduction of motor system and we covered the corticospinal tract. In this video lecture we are going to cover the rubrospinal tract, the other descending tracts which are arising from the brain stems, that is the vestibulospinal tract, reticospinal tract, and after this we are going to cover the interactions of these descending tracts in the spinal cord, in the local circuit of the spinal cord. So this video consists of the following topics. First, let us start with the rubrospinal tract. So as the name suggests, rubro-red, this spinal, the rubrospinal or the cortico-rubrospinal tract, it is arising from the red nucleus. This red nucleus, as you can see here, is present in the mesencephalon or in the midbrain, and from there this nucleus contains the cell body, and from that cell body arises the axons which descends and then supplies to the spinal cord, thus making the descending tract. As you can see here, this rubrospinal tract is also supplied by the cortical neurons, the neurons which are arising from the motor cortex, the primary motor cortex, the supplementary motor cortex, and with the help of cortico-rubral tract, the red nucleus has stimulation from the motor cortex, also help from the motor cortex also for its stimulation. And you can see here that there are certain deep cerebellar nuclei also which are supplying to the red nucleus. So this is the red nucleus in which the magnocellular neurons are going to arise, and those neurons are going to descend to form the rubrospinal tract. In this diagram you can see the rubrospinal tract which is arising from the red nucleus, and the course of this rubrospinal tract is it crosses to the opposite side. If it is from the left, it crosses to the right side on the lower portion of the brain stem, and then descends in close relationship with the corticospinal tract, the lateral corticospinal tract. As you can see, it is present on the dorsal side and it will descend in close relationship anteriorly to the lateral corticospinal tract, and functionally also this rubrospinal tract is closely related to the lateral corticospinal tract. That means if we see into the classification, the lateral corticospinal tract and the rubrospinal tract forms the lateral motor system. That means these descending tracts, the lateral corticospinal tract and the rubrospinal tract, forms the lateral motor systems controlling the the fine control movement, the distal group of muscles, and that is why these are closely related functionally, lateral corticospinal tract and the rubrospinal tract. So this rubrospinal tract, what is its function? If corticospinal tract is present, still why there is need of rubrospinal tract? One thing first is that the rubrospinal tract is not that well developed in human beings. As you can see, there is a way more small nucleus as compared to the well developed motor cortex. This rubrospinal tract or the red nucleus is smaller as compared to other animals, so it is having a less importance, but still it has some importance. What is that importance? Is if there is lesion in the corticospinal tract, if the corticospinal tract is cut and it is not functioning, the rubrospinal tract can still do certain distal muscle movements, like as a fine movements in the wrist. Even though because of the lesion in the corticospinal tract, the person will not be able to move his fingers in a fine way, still because of the presence of rubrospinal tract, the wrist movements and certain distal group of muscles are still active and still functioning. So that is how rubrospinal tract is closely related to the lateral corticospinal tract, and it helps in the functioning of the lateral motor system. Now coming to the next topic, that is control of motor functions by the brainstem. So as we can see in this diagram, this whole portion is called brainstem, which includes the thalamus. In the mesencephalon there would be the red nucleus. This is the lateral view, because of that we cannot see that, but then there is the lower part of the brainstem that consists of pons and medulla. So this area is the pons, this area is the medulla, and then it is also called as the extension of spinal cord in the cranium or in the skull. So this brainstem still acts as an extension of spinal cord in the skull or in the cranium, because as from the spinal cord are arising the spinal neurons which supplies to the muscles, from the brain stems is arising the cranial nerves neurons, which acts as a lower motor neuron for the cranial nerves. So that is why this brain stem, this part of the brain stem is also considered as the extension of spinal cord upwards in the cranium. Okay, so let us consider the control of motor function. So what are the things involved in the motor function from the brain stem? As you can see here, there are certain group of nucleuses, okay, nuclei. First thing is reticular nuclei. The reticular nuclei, as you can see in the mid portion here, there are two groups of reticular nuclei. The first is pontine reticular nuclei, which is present in the pons, and the second is medullary reticular nuclei, which is present in the medulla. Then comes the vestibular nuclei. As you can see laterally, the presence of vestibular nuclei. So these are the major groups what we are going to discuss. The two major groups are reticular nuclei and the vestibular nuclei, and then we will discuss their subgroups and what are their functions. So let us see first of all the reticular nuclei. The reticular nuclei are divided into two major groups. The first group is pontine reticular nuclei, as you can see here, which is present in the pons, lower midbrain and the pons, and from this arises the pontine reticulospinal tract. From this arises the pontine reticulospinal tract. Then comes the medullary reticular nuclei. Here you can see the medullary reticular nuclei, which is present in the medulla of the brain stem, and from there arises the medullary reticulospinal tract. As we studied earlier in the first video, was that these brain stem nuclei are the portion of medial group of motor system. The medial group of motor system are the one which supplies to the medial group of muscles or the axial muscles. To say, those muscles maintains the posture, and those muscles gives a background for established background for performing the fine movement successfully. So that is the function of medial group of medial motor system, and this, the vestibular nuclei, the pontine nuclei, the vestibular nuclei and the reticular nuclei are responsible for controlling those medial and axillary group of muscles. So these two descending tracts, the pontine reticulospinal tract as well as the medullary reticulospinal tract, will supply to the medial group of muscles. That means it will supply to the neurons which are arising from the medial portion of the spinal cord. We will discuss it. So when we discuss about the medial group of muscles or the axillary muscles, that means the anti-gravity muscles, or the muscles which are responsible to maintain erect posture in an animal or in a human being. So these tracts, the medullary reticulospinal tract and the pontine reticulospinal tract, these tracts are supplying to the anti-gravity muscles, but their functions are different. Let us see what are anti-gravity muscles. The hip extensors. Anti-gravity muscles, the function of these anti-gravity muscle is to to enable a human being, a person to stand erect in the erect posture. So what are the muscles that contribute or that helps for a person to stand erect is the hip extensor muscles, which extends the hip, the knee extensor muscles, which extends the knee. This supports the body weight, and the neck and the trunk extensor muscles, which are present on the back side, and the neck flexor and trunk flexor muscles, the contraction of both of them together helps the vertebral column to stand erect in a stronger position. So contraction of both of them together will help to maintain the erect posture in the vertebral column. So these are the anti-gravity muscles. Now coming to the function of those tracts, we discussed about our pontine reticulospinal tract, and we are discussing about pontine reticulospinal tract and the medullary reticulospinal tract. So as you can see here, the location of the tract, the medullary reticulospinal tract is present in the lateral portion of the spinal cord, white matter. As we have told earlier, the tracts are the bundle of axons, so that makes the white matter even in the spinal cord, even in the brain, central nervous system, in the brain. And the gray matter is made by the cell bodies. So if you see this spinal cord, the gray portion is made up by the cell bodies and the white portion is made by the tracts. So that whenever we discuss a tract in the spinal cord, it will be present in the white portion, and whenever we discuss about the cell bodies, as you can see here, it will be present in the gray portion of the spinal cord or in the brain. So as you can see here, the medullary reticulospinal tract, it is present on the lateral portion, whereas the pontine reticulospinal tract, it is present in the medially towards the anterior portion of the spinal cord. Now their functions. If we consider that the solid lines here are excitatory and the dotted lines here are inhibitory, you can see directly that the pontine reticulospinal tract, the upper one which is arising from the pontine reticular nuclei, the pontine reticulospinal tract is exciting or is stimulating the cell bodies here. These are the cell bodies of the neurons which are supplying the anti-gravity muscles. From these cell bodies arises the neurons which goes out of the spinal cord and supplies to the anti-gravity muscle, and these pontine reticulospinal tract is stimulating, as you can see here, the solid lines stimulating these cell bodies, so directly stimulating the anti-gravity muscle. Whereas medullary reticulospinal tract, what is the thing? The dotted line, inhibition. So medullary reticulospinal tract is opposing the action of is opposing the action of pontine reticulospinal tract. So pontine is stimulating the anti-gravity muscles, whereas medullary reticulospinal tract is inhibiting the anti-gravity muscles. So if there is a strong stimulation of pontine reticulospinal tract, it will facilitate the person to stand in an erect posture. If there is a strong stimulation of medullary reticulospinal tract, the person cannot stand up in erect posture because it inhibits the anti-gravity muscles. It does not allow them to contract, it inhibits, and the person cannot stand in the erect posture. Now what happens generally is there is a balance. There is a balance between the stimulation of pontine reticulospinal tract and the medullary reticulospinal tract. When the person wants to stand up, stand erect, from the higher centers, which we will discuss in the next slide, from the higher centers there will be strong stimulation for him to stand through this pontine reticulospinal tract, as we will see in the next slide that the vestibulospinal tract also stimulates the same anti-gravity muscles. So that we'll study individually in the vestibulospinal tract, but let us consider only the pontine reticulospinal tract and medullary reticulospinal tract in this slide. So if there is a strong stimulation of the pontine reticulospinal tract, the person will stand. If there is strong stimulation of medullary reticulospinal tract, the person cannot stand erect. What happens generally is there is a balance between them. When the brain wants, the higher cortex wants a person to stand, it supplies a higher stimulus to the pontine reticulospinal tract. When a person wants to perform a different action, let us say lying down, sitting down, or other action, at that time the brain sends a stronger stimulus to these medullary reticulospinal tract, and which overcomes the stimulation of your pontine reticulospinal tract and then allows the person to perform other postures, to attain other postures like sitting or lying down or relaxing. Other portions or other stages can be attained by the action of medullary reticulospinal tract, which inhibits the anti-gravity muscle. So this is how the balance between pontine and medullary reticulospinal tract occurs, and these are the one which helps to perform the certain actions. Now we were talking about the higher center effect. So we were talking about the pontine reticular nuclei. As we can see here, pontine reticular nuclei is supplied by a higher center. What are those higher centers? Those are vestibular nuclei and the deep cerebral nucleus. As such, the pontine nucleus naturally has a higher rate of firing or excitability of its own. The pontine reticular nuclei has excitability of its own, and it is also stimulated by the vestibular nucleus and the deep nucleus of cerebellum. So this is the higher center which stimulates the pontine reticular nuclei. On the other hand, the medullary reticular nuclei, which inhibits the action of pontine reticular nuclei, has its inherent activity or its excitability is very less. It is not excited by its own. It is excited by the higher centers when needed. And what are those higher centers? Those are the cortex, the motor cortex, and the red nucleus. Through the cortico-reticular pathways, as we would have studied in the previous video, there are other pathways from the cortex coming to various areas in the brain stem, and the other parts. So this, through the cortex and the red nucleus, comes the descending neurons to the reticular nuclei, which then stimulates the reticular nuclei when, apart from standing erect, some other stages or other works has to be done. This area will be stimulated by the cortex. The medullary reticular nuclei will be stimulated by the cortex, and then the descending tract will inhibit the anti-gravity muscle, and that is how this balance takes place. Now coming to the vestibulospinal tract. So the brain stem major action is by the reticulospinal tract, which is the pontine reticulospinal tract and the medullary reticulospinal tract. But apart from that, there is a special function of vestibulospinal tract, that is to maintain a stable posture. Vestibulospinal tract is, and it works in response to the vestibular apparatus. The balance and equilibrium vestibular apparatus is responsible, and this vestibulospinal tracts work as a response to the vestibular sensation. So these vestibular descending tracts are divided into lateral and medial vestibulospinal tracts. The major function of these vestibulospinal tract is to supplement the action of pontine reticulospinal tract. This vestibulospinal tract also stimulates the anti-gravity muscle. So this is working in combination with the pontine reticulospinal tract. But as you can see here, there are two different pathways, medial vestibulospinal tract and the lateral vestibulospinal tract. These are selectively stimulated on the basis of the vestibular apparatus stimulation, and that we will study in detail in the vestibular apparatus and equilibrium lectures. So, but for this consideration, for this lecture, you have to only consider one thing, that the vestibulospinal tract is reinforcing the action of pontine reticulospinal tract, that is stimulating the anti-gravity muscle. Now coming to the final slide, that is the local neuronal circuit in the spinal cord. So let us see here. What we studied are there are descending tracts. So as you can see in the spinal cord, the white matter, and in this white matter are present the descending tracts. These yellow color, blue color structures, what you can see are the bundle of neurons which are descending, and this is the cross section, the transverse section of the spinal cord, and this neuron is coming from up and still going down. As you can imagine, this is the cross section and these are the tracts. So corticospinal tract is there, rubrospinal tract is there, reticulospinal tract is there, tectospinal and reticulospinal tract is there, vestibulospinal tracts are there. So these are the cross section of those tracts which are present in the white matter. Now coming to the grey matter, what is happening in the grey matter? So from the spinal cords comes out the final common pathway, or the one which you can see in the blue color here is the final common pathway which will travel through the spinal nerves and supply to the muscle. So this blue color cell body which is located in the anterior horn of the spinal cord, and this axon which is coming out will be then coming out from the anterior horn, will be traveling in the spinal neuron and will supply to the muscle. So this is the final common pathway to the muscle which has to be contracted. And here this neuron, as you can see, is supplied by a various large number of neurons. These large number of neurons can be direct supply from a tract. As you can see here, there is direct supply from a tract, direct supply from the corticospinal tract and direct supply from the rubrospinal tract. As you can see here, there is direct supply from the cortico-rubrospinal tract, the tectospinal tract, the vestibulospinal tract. This is just a representation, because we have already studied before that the cortico and rubrospinal tract will be supplying to the axons, to the cell bodies which are supplying to the lateral group of muscles, and these tracts will majorly contribute to the excitation of medial group of muscles. So this is just a representation that all of the neurons are converging in one cell body. That is just a representation to tell you that this is the type of circuit which is formed. But usually what happens is corticospinal and rubrospinal will supply to the lateral group of neurons, and vestibulo and tectospinal and reticulospinal tract will supply to the medial group of neurons, axons, the cell body which are giving rise to those axons, medial group, and supplying the medial and axial musculature of the body. So there are certain possibilities coming out of the spinal cord. This is the one final common pathway, but to excite this one final common pathway there are certain possibility. The first possibility we said and we saw here is direct stimulation, and this direct stimulation occurs in the cell bodies of axons or the neurons which are supplying the muscles of the fine movement. So the corticospinal and rubrospinal tract directly innervate to the fine movement muscles, directly innervates to the cell body which then supply for the fine movement muscle. But these also supplies the interneurons. As you can see here, there are something called interneurons. What are these interneurons? They are arising in the spinal cord itself and ending in the spinal cord only. As you can see here, this interneuron arising in the spinal cord and ending in another neuron which is arising in the spinal cord. So this is a kind of interneuron. As you can see here, this is a kind of interneuron. So the second possibility, the first possibility was direct stimulation. The second possibility is the stimulation of corticospinal tract or to the interneurons, and through these interneurons the integrated circuit comes stimulation to the cell body of the final common pathway. So one direct, two interneurons. These are the ways the descending tracts influence the excitation of the final common pathway, the motor neuron. Apart from the descending tracts, there is also an action of sensory neurons. As you can see here, sensory neurons which are coming from the dorsal column, the sensory neurons entering, this has a direct stimulation of motor neurons. This is the pathway of monosynaptic reflex to excite, to stimulate the motor neuron. Sensation directly stimulating the motor neuron, the monosynaptic pathway to stimulate the motor neuron. Whereas there is one more possibility that the sensory neuron coming from the dorsal column can still stimulate the interneurons. So the stimulation to the final common pathway, the motor neuron, can come from the descending tracts and can come from the sensory neurons also. The descending tracts can stimulate them directly by direct innervation on the cell body or indirectly through the interneurons. The second, sensory neurons can also affect them directly and through the interneurons. And the final output is the combination of all these innervations. Whether the muscle will contract, in which way it will contract, or whether it will relax, depends on the interaction of this local circuitry and what is happening, whether the action potential is arising, it is potentiating, or it is inhibiting, depends on what is happening to the final common pathway, the axon of the final common pathway. So that is what was our class for the descending tracts. This finishes the descending tract, and thank you for watching this video.